Hello and welcome to another WoW lore video. Today I'm going to approach the lore from a different direction, namely the factions and the races. In this video, as quickly yet thoroughly and entertaining as I can, I'm going to explain the Horde and the races that make them up. There's a lot to go through and no time to do it. Let's go! The Horde began with the Orcs, aliens who accidentally ruined their home planet and, using demonic soul magic, escaped to Azeroth as refugees set on conquering. Here's where we get the Horde's main theme. They see themselves as poor little outcast refugees and badass conquerors, and flip between the two so fast that no one can actually tell which one they are at any given time. Don't get me wrong, there's a ton more ticking inside, as well as some good heart, with strong values like honor, freedom, and family. But these messages get completely drowned out by their self-pity and warmongering. The Horde also has a big leadership problem, as tends to happen when the people can't decide whether they're good guys or bad guys. Here's a quick list of all the Warchiefs the Horde has had since arriving on Azeroth. Ner'zhul, Blackhand the Destroyer, Orgrim Doomhammer, Ner'zhul again, Blackhand Jr. Then, a split happens, where the refugee orcs follow Orgrim Doomhammer, while the Conqueror orcs stay with Blackhand Jr. Blackhand Jr. leads the quote-unquote true Horde until we kill him in vanilla World of Warcraft, while Orgrim Doomhammer makes Thrall Warchief of the quote-unquote new Horde that we get to play as. Then Garrosh Hellscream, Vol'jin, and now Sylvanas Windrunner. If I had to sum up the Horde, it would be the Horde. Kill others to improve our self-esteem. Oh, and claim to be all about honor sometimes, I guess. Let's move on and talk about the races of the Horde. First, there's the Orcs, currently led by High Overlord Varrock Sourfang. Like I said, they began the Horde, and until Vol'jin, only Orcs had been Warchief because of their inherent xenophobia. They're also the loudest voices in the kill to improve our self-esteem bandwagon. They barely know how to take care of themselves. Look at the Blasted Lands. That used to be part of Elwyn Forest. The hell? And look at where they live now, Orgrimmar. That was part of Ashenvale. Fair enough, it was already a bit barren when they moved there, but why did they decide to live there? You've got trees on three sides of you, and you decide to live in the Barrens? Why? So yeah, not super smart, but to be absolutely fair, they're also the biggest proponents of honor in the Horde. Their current leader, Sourfang, has always been consistent with that.
Honor young heroes, no matter how dire the battle. Never forsake it.
Next is the Tauren, led by Chieftain Bane Bloodhoof. They, along with the Orcs and Trolls, were the core races of the new Horde, and Bane's father Cairn was a key piece of its creation. Cairn was old but strong and represented the best of the Tauren. Tauren are peaceful and one with the land, the only basic race that can be both shaman and druid, but are capable of defending themselves as they are strong and proud. They are also incredibly loyal, with willpower and patience to spare. When Garrosh accidentally killed Cairn, his son picked up the shattered Tauren tribes and brought them back together. Bane has done his best to follow in his father's footsteps to advise the Horde in a more peaceful direction, but the other leaders tend to ignore him due to his comparative youth. Also worth mentioning, the Tauren tribes are the race that cares the least about the whole Alliance versus Horde thing, easily. Bane and Anduin are actually good friends, and the current leader of the Cenarian Circle is Hamul Runetotem, a Tauren. Really, it's too bad they aren't in charge. Oh. Next, on to the Trolls. The Trolls were the first naturally sentient race on Azeroth, and built their empires from the bones of the old god's Black Empire. Trolls are tribal, and as such care more about community than most of the other Horde races. They serve patron spirits called Loa, and make sacrifices in their name in return for boons from them. Or sometimes they kill the Loa and try to take the boons by force. This never works out for them. Trolls come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and all of them have different values depending on their patron Loa. The ones that are specifically part of the Horde are the Darkspear tribe. They were one of many races that splintered from one of the larger empires and was basically beaten down to the point where they just wanted peace. They joined the Horde when Warchief Thrall attempted to save them from being sacrificed to a Naga sea witch. He saved most of them, but was too late to save their leader, Sen'jin. Sen'jin's son, Vol'jin, was grateful to Thrall for saving his people, despite the loss of his father, and swore his allegiance. Since then, Vol'jin and his Darkspear have served the best interests of the Horde, treating it as their tribe, and taking its values as their own, even so far as to reject joining other trolls to rebuild their empire in favor of the Horde, and indeed rebelled against Garrosh when he failed to uphold those values. Vol'jin's time as Warchief was short but sweet, working together with the Alliance and others towards a greater purpose, and upholding honor and the best of the Horde's traits so well that in his 2 years as Warchief, there was hardly any incident at all between the two. If he'd been able to remain, we might have seen peace at last. No wonder Blizzard killed him. Can't have Warcraft without war. Next, the Forsaken. Look, I kinda gotta go off on one here. The gist of it is that they're zombie people that make zombie plague to make more zombies. But they work for the Horde and now sort of lead it. If that's all you need, skip ahead, because there's actually a ton to unpack with these guys in terms of lore, and if you don't want to hear it, just move on. Okay, so the Forsaken are undead, who managed to regain their sanity and broke away from the mindless Scourge. In their rebellion, they managed to secure Lordaeron, which for most of them was their home in life and now again in death. They rallied under Sylvanas Windrunner, a powerful High Elf general who had been slain by Arthas, once Prince of Lordaeron and then servant to the Lich King. Above all else, they sought revenge against Arthas, who had betrayed them. They tried to rejoin the Alliance, but after half of their country had been destroyed by undead, they were understandably reluctant to accept them. Rather than try to convince them, Sylvanas thought it best to abandon their old lives, and instead they joined the Horde, who was less acquainted with the Scourge, and thus just saw them as one more monstrous race that the Alliance hated. After Arthas was defeated in Wrath of the Lich King, the Forsaken was at a crossroads. Sylvanas, and those most loyal to her, sought to empower the Forsaken, creating plagues and blights to corrupt the land and raise the fallen as their own, employing similar tactics as the Scourge, but under the Forsaken banner. Meanwhile, the populace at large wanted more than ever to pick up the pieces of their past life and simply allow themselves to peacefully fade away among their living relatives. This disconnect between Sylvanas and her people grew, but at the same time the people loved their Dark Lady, seeing her as their savior. They believed that all her underhanded tactics were for them, for the betterment of their people. Sylvanas, however, saw this disconnect and wanted to put a stop to it. As Warchief, she was able to kill the Desolate Council, destroy the people's hopes of rejoining their loved ones, and was able to blame it all on the Alliance. She attacked Teldrassil, conquered Darkshore, and began the Battle of Azeroth. Most recently, she's even used the plague to kill and raise her own soldiers, not just Forsaken, but orcs and trolls and taurens, and has begun raising the Night Elves slain at Teldrassil to serve her. She's even raised a member of the Proudmoore family and put him on torturous display to taunt the Alliance. When the Lich King was slain, King Tyrannus Menethil said,
"Without its master's command, the restless Scourge will become an even greater threat to this world. Control must be maintained."
And now, through Sylvanas, we may be seeing just what happens when Scourge are allowed freedom. Next up, Blood Elves. Give people a sec to skip over. Okay. Blood Elves look like your basic prissy elf, and yeah, they kind of are. To summarize elf archetypes, Night Elves are like Wood Elves, while Blood Elves are like the super high and mighty, treat themselves like royalty type of elves. They're called Blood Elves because they got addicted to magic and then lost their power source, and a ton of them died, and those who didn't have this magical starvation, and it sucks. And then there was this racist who really didn't care, and Anyway, the Blood Elves we play as serve under Regent Lord Lorthamar Theron. He's called Regent Lord because the last king lived for nearly 3,000 years, and when he died, his son declared him the last king of the High Elves, and renamed his people Blood Elves. And then Lorthamar betrayed him and helped us kill him. One would think this would make him king of the Blood Elves, but if thousands of years of magic addiction tell us anything, it's that these elves aren't super smart. Other than that, though, Lorthamar is a pretty okay guy. He doesn't get a lot of screen time, and when he does, he's more or less just trying to get stuff done quietly without making too much of a fuss. He was kind of cool at the Isle of Thunder, though. Last of the main races is the Goblins. The Goblins in WoW are sort of like the tech-loving orcs from Warhammer, mixed with bureaucrats. Goblins love doing business. More than that, they like to lie, cheat, and steal while still doing business. They also have a bit of story, but it never gets referenced again as far as I know. Basically, the goblin you, the player, play as is a goblin who is very nearly one of their rulers, called Trade Princes. You owned a soda company that had a special ingredient that made you temporarily smarter, called Kaja Cola. But when your home blows up, your money gets stolen by Trade Prince Gallywix, who then eventually becomes the leader of the goblins and therefore your boss. One assumes you swear revenge, but no one really cared about the goblin story, so it kinda got forgotten. I think. I don't remember it ever being brought up again. Anyway, segue to Trade Prince Gallywix. He's delightfully evil. He's very proud of all the evil, underhanded things he's had to do, and flaunts all the ill-gotten gains. I mean, for crying out loud, he built a quote-unquote pleasure palace on top of a mountain, which he then proceeded to carve his face into. Also, apparently it's come to light that while previously everyone blamed the destruction of the goblin home Kazan on Deathwing, it turns out it might have been an eensy-weensy bit all his fault. And don't think he didn't tell everybody as soon as he found out either. Magnificent evil bastard. Oh, and there's pandas, too. One clan joins the Alliance, the other one joins the Horde. Their story is cool, but after level 20 or so, you never hear about it again except for one boss fight in the Siege of Orgrimmar raid. So if Blizz doesn't care, then, whatever. Horde pandas would be led by G Firepaw if they ever bothered to bring him up. He believes actions speak louder than words, and that if there is a solution, then it should be taken rather than try to come up with a better solution that might not exist. Blah blah, watered down Illidan philosophy, but even more crappy because Blizz don't give him anything else. So yeah, that's the Horde in a nutshell. Pick a race, go kill some stuff. Blood and honor! Loktarugar! Which means victory or death. Rah! Rah.